the job, it's the leader has got to take some responsibility in
Right,
that.
but resources have to be, I'm saying resources need to be made available. We need to be putting those supports in place to help them. That's what I'm saying. Like, we just can't say they a grown adult and they need to push their trauma aside to come teach my baby.
Yeah. I hope I never leave a building again, because it's going to come back to bite me. I'm not saying push the trauma aside. What I'm saying is your trauma, in some cases, is the most powerful thing you have to propel you into greatness, right?
Yeah.
When you hear people talk about their stories and talking about how they've achieved something, it is the most powerful thing that's ever happened. If each of us shared our leadership story, I bet you there's going to be some trauma in it, right? Nobody at any other profession is saying, I can't do this job because I done have seen some trauma.
I ain't saying that they can't do it. I'm saying you need to equip them to be able to deal with their trauma. Because I also recognize when a person has not dealt with trauma,
for sure,
how that bleeds out.
True. And what I'm saying is, you don't belong in the classroom.
Yeah, but I think it's hard to say that too, though, because it's so. So I did my dissertation work on the emotional intelligence of teachers, right?
You can't be here.
True, but I think we're seeing teachers flight.
Right.
They're leaving the profession. Like 4 schools I'm in right now, personal conversations, almost 50% of the teachers are leaving. They're not telling, they're leaving profession, period.
But are they leaving because of trauma?
Well, I think it's a number of things. But I think we point, and here's the catch, right? If the teacher is the primary variable of student success and the quality of that teacher being, I can teach at a high level. So I can give students what they need so they can be successful. But I don't provide the supports, the training, the development that they need to do the job effectively. Then they feel a level of frustration. They feel the heaviest weight of accountability. And if we can't keep teachers long enough so that they can develop and perform, and I'm speaking specifically to the urban sector, because right now they have the highest numbers, and as the report I read had the highest numbers of novice teachers that teach in the urban. It's easier to get a job in the urban sector.
Correct.
The highest needs are in the urban sector. So I'm taking somebody who don't know how to do the job,
sure,
putting them in the most volatile, high mobility space, and I want them to perform at a high level, and I don't give them the emotional skill set to deal with the stress and the cultural indifference. I don't know how to talk to these students who come with trauma and why they running and why they can't sit down and all this other stuff. And I'm done. I'm gone. I don't have the skill set to do it. Then you got to start all over again and get 10 more new teachers and put them through the same. So the mobility of teachers in the urban sector is almost like students. They come, I got 60% of my school is brand new than it was at the beginning of the school because they're moving, and teachers are the same,
I think some of this, though, is an overreaction to professionalism trends. Nobody stays in jobs for a long period of time anymore anyway, right? And then the other thing we have to look at is we've been out of a recession for almost 10 years now. The teaching population goes up with every recession, goes all the way up because it's the easiest job to find. It's a job that's going to be there no matter what. You got to educate kids. Public mandate. Got to educate kids, right? It goes up every time there's a recession. Guess what? We've been out of recession almost 10 years. That population dropping right now until we go back in.
Well, I still say at the end of the day, we need to we need to put resources in place to support teachers because like Brian said, they are leaving, dropping like flies. I sat on a board for Innovation School and I know and heard the challenges that teachers were expressing of the burnout and like, I can't deal with these kids. And I can't deal with these bad kids. No, it ain't even that. It's just you ain't dealt with your own stuff. And now you're trying to come in here and teach my baby. You need to deal with your stuff before you come in here and teach my baby. And you may have a good heart to want to do that. But if nobody has helped you deal with your stuff, then you're not going to last in the classroom. That's just my personal thought. But who am I? I'm just a person working through my own trauma and therapy too.
I just think, though,
we are.
Whose responsibility is it to then provide that type of resource to the teacher when our first priority is the student? So, I'm a little torn between both sides because I get Patrick's point of I can't have you breaking down in front.
Don't cry in front of my kids.
But on
like
the
that.
other hand, in front of the children, but then on the other hand, I have to also, because I'm responsible as a leader for your development, but ultimately, if it's taking time away from who we are truly there to service, that's a thin line.
Yeah, and I'm not saying
Is that kind of where the union comes into play as far as being too rigid?
That's again my experience,
perception.
and that
Okay.
was years ago.
And I'm not saying take it away from the school day. I'm just saying maybe offer some stuff after school for teachers to be able to come in. But we put all these expectations on them, and we don't give them the support. So I'm not saying you take time away from the school day to let a teacher go to go see the counselor in the building. No, offer something after school. Offer yoga, meditation, so that they know how to deal with their own anger. We can't expect them, the kids, to know how to deal with their anger when our teachers don't even know how to deal with that. They need to go sit down and woosah somewhere.
And I'm telling you, if we don't address it,
That's what I'm saying.
we really, especially with the
Shootings,
with the climate of
everything
the
that's
culture
going on
society
right now,
that we
the
live
snap.
in, we will be in trouble because now we got subs teaching students
Mm-hmm.
with no academic instruction skill at all. So if they be, and if people might come out of school and say, I'm not going into the urban, I'll go up north and teach,
Mm-hmm.
and we need teachers to stick. And so, I mean,
We can't look
Yeah,
at
I
it
think
from a
we're still trying to
robotic,
figure out
just
trauma.
a robotic
Yeah.
person in the classroom teaching
Yeah.
robot. Because that's how we
For
teach
sure.
kids from a robotic standpoint. You go to a black school and they're very structured, military. Sit down, do that. We don't have to do our kids like that. You go to a white school, them kids can run all through the
All over the
classroom,
place.
and so it's like, how do we even approach our kids? We approach teaching our kids from a military perspective of why. But the next question, moving
FOI
on.
said do it. But I would say, even with that, I say to be solutions oriented, because I know I have my stance. One of the best things that you can do is build a strong organizational culture in your school. So it doesn't have to be yoga. It could be like, this is what we all believe in. This is why we all believe that. These are the things that we're going to do to continue this belief. And it kind of mitigates some of those things. So to be solutions oriented.
Next question. Why are expectations, and we've talked about this, why are expectations for black students low, and how can we raise them? Who want to tackle that?
So that was one of the questions that I put out there. And the reason why I have been thinking about this is I'm trying to push the township schools to raise their standards. And in doing that, one of the learnings I had from previously getting into it with in the Department of Education was when they were going through their Every Student Succeeds Act, they set up different goals. They had goals for white kids, they had goals for black kids, and the black kids' goals were lower.
Yep.
And I did the same thing you said. Like, that's the same thing. And when I was looking at their report, what they said was, whenever since they've been tracking the maximum amount of gain that the black group had made across the state had been like 2%. That's the max they had ever seen. And so realistically, how do you set goals? If you know that you have a 48 or 20 or 30% gap on your standardized tests, and when I'm thinking of standardized tests, it's not just, Learn or I-STEP. I'm looking at ACT,
everywhere.
SAT.
It's all
It
across the
trends, it
board.
runs through, and then there's usually some kind of connection to school discipline, and that's not on the list, but we'll probably get into that too. How do you actually set goals? Can you come out and just say we're going to make it the same as the white and the Asian kids, or is it really our own expectations? I don't know how you do that, so I figured I'd throw that to the experts.
Yeah.
I'll take notes.
I mean, I can always go.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the question. Why are expectations for black students low, and how can we raise them? The first is that we have to acknowledge it. We are truly in a society that is afraid to say it.
Yep.
And so instead we come up with things like opportunity gap.
Well,
So we have got to acknowledge it. We have to be unapologetic about fighting for better opportunities for black and brown students. I would say the other thing, that's a tough one. I'm blown away by what you just shared.
it's tough. It's
Yeah,
hard.
that's tough.
It's a real problem.
It's only one answer.
yeah.
Okay.
Racism.
It's systemic racism.
That's what it
that
is. That's what it is. It's racism, right? First of all, and I've never been in a leadership position in a traditional district, so I want to be fair. But I will opine this. If you have the black students achieve, your whole district shoots all the way up. All the way up. Why not do this then? Why not just set goals for the black kids? We want 100% of our black third graders to pass iLearn this year. That's what we're all working towards.
That's what I was going to say, finding a common goal, because it's like we're all operating in our own silos with our own goal and own vision on what high quality looks like, what our expectations should be for our kids. How can we bring that together so that we're all on one accord?
I'll speak from the principal's view too. So something in my personal experience, when mamas send their babies to our school, whatever school the leader is leading, and they disaggregate or they baseline to tell me where all my children are, the principal or the teachers don't get to decide which children they get. I'm going to get who comes to my school. The teacher's going to get who comes to their classroom. At that point, you set goals that should be the most rigorous things that you could see. But after that comes now allocation of resource to get that child to that goal. And I would say from my personal experience, that's been the most challenging thing. Because if I put 30 kids in a classroom with a first grade teacher, and 80% of them are significantly below grade level, and my goal is to get them to grade level and then a year's growth, I have to get 30 kids a year and a half in a year. I need a great teacher to do that. And if I don't have a great teacher, then I got to accelerate these new teachers to a place that they can do it effectively. That takes time. That takes resource. Do I have access to another teacher where I can make those groups smaller? Can I hire an aide to bring in and do small group pull out throughout the year? There's so many dynamics, but I think starting with the goal, and it's an athlete right here too. If I need to lose 100 pounds in 6 months, I need to know everything that needs to happen. Planning, discipline, all those things, mindset change, all those things have to happen like right now to get me to 6 months. So I don't even know if I'm answering that. I don't even know where I went. I kind of got a loss along the way.
But you're starting with a goal that is the same for everyone.
Yeah.
Everybody.
We start disaggregating against these subgroups in order to fulfill requirements for state accountability.
Right.
None of these conversations would even be important if accountability couldn't be played around with by manipulating subgroups. When we manipulate subgroup data, that gets us. I know how to get an A. I'm telling you. I can go in any school district and I can get an A.
I've heard that.
But it's because I can
real.
manipulate
It's real.
subgroups.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm doing what's best for all students. I know here today we're talking about students of color. But me as an educator, when I walk into my building, it is my responsibility to raise every child. And so if I am manipulating different growth goals for different subgroups, I'm playing a game. The
conversation that we don't have is this. Kelly Marshall was my boss at Tinley. I wonder, we had, 150 staff members.
Right.
How many of them thought she was worthy of being their boss? Just from the color of her skin. How many students have you had that have just thought, just in their minds, what is this Negro doing as my professor?
Right.
I've had a couple.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I have that.
I can tell.
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
How many?
Black girl
I bet you a white woman wish she had your job right now.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said.
I've had people straight up tell me, do you really know about instruction?
Right.
Yeah. It goes back to what you said.
I done had 100% pass here, never lower than 90. Have you lost your whole mind?
They look at us for culture and management.
If I was a white male, I'd be God's gift to
You
instruction.
sure would.
So we have to understand there is a mindset that exists. And if we don't have real conversations about that mindset, That's when we get stuff like that.
I mean, you said it at the top. It goes back to racism. Our kids were never expected